evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is the May 11th, 2017 meeting of the East Fishkill Town Board. This is a workshop meeting where the Town Board meets in public to discuss matters of importance concerning the town of East Fishkill. If you would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Just a couple quick announcements tonight. We did do, the bids came in for the Hillside Lake Stormwater Project. The bid opening was May 5th at noon. We only had 3 bidders. We were a little surprised at that because we had many more. I think 12 took out bid packs. But we only had 3 bids come in, and the low bid was Sunup Enterprises for the sum of $722,500. So I'm going through the schedule. We have some work to do, but we do plan to make this award at the May 25th Town Board meeting. So we just have to go through a few of the items in the bid docs themselves. But it looks good. That, and also got a email, and also I got a visit yesterday from the Army Corps of Engineers. They want to do a site visit, the Hopewell North, the Hopewell Precision Superfund water system. They're going to do what they call the walking the project with the contractors. So this is very important. They're going to have the contractors that are proposing to do this project, and they're going to do a walk out there and take a look at the project early June, I think. So I do expect to see that after first time I heard about this was 2005. After 12 years, we're finally going to get a shovel in the ground to bring water up to the Hopewell Precision Superfund site. So this is very good. I was surprised when the Army Corps stopped in, and again, just very happy that the project's moving along. And that's all I have tonight for announcements. With that, I'll open up the work session. And the first item of discussion on the work session is our MS4 annual report, and this discussion with Walter Artis, our MS4 contractor coordinator. And Walter's prepared this document for us as per DEC, New York State DEC law. This is our annual report, and we have to have it submitted by June 1st.
That's correct.
Walter's compiled this as he does. How long have you been with us, Walter? Since 2000?
2008.
I thought so. So
maybe 2007. Maybe it was late 2007.
Yeah. So we appreciate your work in keeping us up to date with the MS4 regulations. Has to be so at the next town board meeting. What we'll do probably first thing on the agenda will be to vote to authorize the signing of the annual MS4 report. How are we looking as far as our MS4 program, Walter?
Well, we're in compliance, and the reason I requested to be on this evening's agenda was we're required to present the report at a public meeting. And just want to inform the board that this year's annual report is complete. It's for the reporting period March 10th, 2016 through March 10th, 2017. We're still operating under the 2015 permit, which is pretty much a rubber stamp of the 2010 permit.
Okay, now let me just touch base on that. I think they were actually looking to update the 2015 last year, and they got pretty stringent with what DEC was requiring.
What had happened, yes, DEC was in litigation with various groups, and basically DEC lost. They did put out a draft 2017 MS4 permit in October with a public comment period ending in December. Due to the volume of comments they had, they extended the public comment period into February. Due to the exceedingly amount of comments they had, they have now taken the permit off the board. They've gone back to the drawing board. Okay. I've heard nothing about it.
And my understanding was it was a very difficult law to deal with.
It was not only difficult, I don't even know what words to put. I mean, I actually sent in a comment memo myself, probably about 6 or 8 pages worth. There was just things in there that you just don't know who thought this up. With no definition or no, backing for it. And it would have been burdensome, extremely burdensome. Some towns actually in Westchester and Putnam did some cost estimates, what it may cost over a 5-year time frame, and it ranged from anywhere from $600,000 to $1 million.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Now, our little MS4 budget is probably around 70,000.
Exactly.
It's done to us.
No, it's,
But,
but yeah, a portion of our lands are in that east of Hudson, so we would have been affected
They're
by
very-
some
yeah,
of that.
yeah.
Some of that. But there was just things in there, I can throw a couple examples. They wanted you to now sweep your highways or your town roads once a month as opposed to once a year.
Really?
Which makes no sense.
So I'm not sure what the budget for sweeping is, probably around 80,
I
90,000 a
think,
year,
yeah,
what have you.
there's no budget for it. There
No,
was
there
no,
would have been-
there was no cost-benefit analysis
Wow,
conducted.
just sweep your roads once a month?
Once a month,
Wow.
sure. Why not?
That's a little bit.
And there was a number of things in there, of that caliber, so to speak.
Wow.
And,
So what are we thinking? I mean, they've
They-
backed off
they've-
on it. We're still using the 15.
We're still using the 15, which is pretty much the same as the 2010 permit.
Okay.
Because
and
they were
the-
in litigation at the
They're
time.
going to come back, I imagine, probably this year or next year with an updated, so we'll see how that goes.
Likely, and I was able to get a hold of one memo, I believe it was the state senator from Westchester, I forget his name, had sent into DEC, and he was actually bringing it in front of the legislature.
Okay, good.
So I think that helped push it back some. I mean, it really needed to be reworked. It was just,
Yeah.
there's no way we could have afforded it.
But, well, and I'll just make one quick comment to that. One thing I see, they just updated the New York State Building Code. I think in October of last year, they adopted the new code. And I don't think they bring this to the legislature. These are huge departments that operate independently of
Right.
the state legislature who represents us.
Right.
And I'm going to get more into that when I talk about some other things we're getting with the state. But I don't think that the state reps realize these rules and regulations that they keep coming down on us with.
I agree, and that's why I was, and again, I don't recall the senator's name, but I was impressed reading his memo,
Yeah.
in behalf of his constituents, and the burden this would have on the municipalities down in Westchester, so,
Our friends up in Albany.
so,
Back to our report. How are
Okay.
we looking MS4-wise?
we're fine, we're in compliance with our permit requirements.
Okay.
Again, I have no idea when they're gonna come out with the new permit.
Yeah.
It's pretty much generic to the same 2010, 2015 permit. Number, but generally consistent with last year's reports. Numbers do change. You might have more active construction sites one year than another year.
Okay.
You might have more notice of violation served, more stop work orders, or less,
Yeah.
dependent upon
Oh,
the
we're
year.
up to date. We're complying with our educational, because education is a big
Yes.
part of this and
Yes.
all
In
that.
fact, we also have a billboard going up at the intersection of 82 and 376 very shortly, a big MS4 public
Really?
educational billboard, so.
Don't tell the sign person that.
It's part of the Dutchess County Regulated MS4 Committee.
No kidding.
Yeah, there'll be one on 9G, and we got one on Route 82, so.
Wow, good. Education is the big part of this.
Right.
Speaking of, and I'll open it to the board in just a minute, we had a terrible rain the other day, and I had gotten calls from different areas in town. I spoke with you about a couple of the incidences.
Correct.
That we received complaints about. And, when you have that amount of water, I forget what day it was, but it was just teeming. And when you have that amount of water, and some of the pictures I've looked at from a few of these things that were, that were brought to my attention, I didn't see like a work site. I didn't see like a road. A lot of it seemed to be coming off ground, grass, out of the woods, what have you. Is that a violation when you have such a storm as that? When, what do you do?
No, in fact, it was either Friday or Saturday, and we had about, where I'm in LaGrange, we had about 4 inches of rain. I live in a neighborhood that's been developed for about 70 years or so.
Yeah, yeah.
I was outside, and I had sediment-laden runoff, slight incline, it's not a steep hill.
Yeah, yeah.
On both sides of the gutter, just
Yeah.
running down out of nowhere. It's really just coming off people's lawns. I do
Yeah.
have a farm adjacent to me, but,
And that's
there
why-
was no active construction sites, nowhere's in the vicinity
Okay.
at all. So you can only imagine in my head, I could only imagine what was going on the active construction
Yeah,
sites, so.
yeah. Hopefully they were intact.
Yeah, most people were buttoned up pretty good.
Okay, good. I'll open up questions to the board. I didn't mean to be taking all the time. Anybody have any questions for Walter? He's been our MS coordinator for quite some time and very familiar with the town operations.
Well, just briefly, Walter, I'm happy to see that there is some pushback as far as new regulations coming out. I have a feeling that probably some of those were coming out of New York City. I think in New York City, they clean their street on a weekly basis. But we have a lot of legislators from the New York City area that are in Albany, and probably this was pushed by them, but I don't think we have the issues that New York City does. So I'm happy to see that we're not, at least we're fighting, we're not implementing these costly measures, which it's really another mandate on the taxpayers that probably we will not be able to find the money for.
Right, and there was just so many things in the permit that you could not define. Quickly off the top of my head, another thing I think of when we review stormwater pollution prevention plans at the planning board level, they wanted the MS4 to take into account community resilience and climate change with no definition. So typically, when you review something of that caliber, you have design criteria.
Yeah, yeah.
And, my comment was, what is the design
what does
criteria
this
for
mean?
community resilience and climate change? You're just going to have planning boards tied up in knots. So it's just a lot of things like
Yeah.
that were so subjective, you don't even know what to,
You don't even know what they're asking for.
you don't,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know
exactly.
what?
Walter, I'm in agreement with you on that. I mean, climate change in the past 1 or 2 decades has been a big costly mandate on a lot of the counties, especially in New York State. So probably with the new president,
Okay.
he might do something about that, some relief.
Well, we did
hope
address,
so.
not we, but the state, in the New York State Stormwater Design Manual few years ago, we have had, in the past 10 years or so, more significant rainfall events. So they increased the precipitation rates for different storm events. So when you're designing new infiltration basins and
On your
basins,
stormwater
they're
systems.
larger
Yeah.
to accommodate that. So,
Used to be a 50-year storm, now it's a 100-year storm.
right, and they've increased the amount of rainfall,
Yeah.
which
Because
is,
we're getting them more and more.
yeah.
But talking about climate change, I mean, I don't know what the cause is, but in my short lifespan, I've seen that there is a change in the weather patterns.
Right.
And what we're getting is more intense storms.
If you're going to come up with a mandate for the planning board,
Yeah. You have to have some
you have
criteria.
to have some design criteria.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're in flux.
Yeah. You know, one of the things, too, if you talk a little bit about why this, you mentioned before about the DEP areas that we have in the town that's up on the Stormville mountainside, the east of Hudson.
Right.
Which really goes back in the late 90s, I think, New York City had a problem with the water supply.
Right.
New York City was always known to have the best water in the world, came from upstate reservoirs. Unfortunately, over the years, it wasn't as good. So instead of, and they call this, and this was really gets me, I still see the term used, New York City adopted a filtration avoidance declaration.
Exactly.
That means
That's
is
their-
we're not going to spend $500 billion to put our filter in.
Right.
We're going to make you all clean up the water that comes into New York City, which is just passing the buck to us.
That was basically their rules and regulations that was adopted, like you said, in the mid-'90s,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
So it's very, yep. But anyway, but good practice is good practice. We don't want to go crazy, but we do want to make sure we're doing the right thing.
No, and just one other thing also, I am in receipt of a email from Mr. Damaso that he would like to be put in as public comments, the protocol for
That was
that.
one of the complaints. That was one of the complaints that we had received. So I was going to ask if that complaint could be put in, would that be put in this year?
No, the protocol is, it would be
When does
in
this year-
writing into
yeah,
next year's.
When did
annual-
this year end?
March 9th.
March 9th. Okay, so this would actually go into the
This
next.
goes into next year's annual
Okay.
report, yes.
Okay, very good.
He sent it.
All right.
And that
Anybody
would be in
else? Any questions on our MS4?
I just want to say thank you for what you do, and as long as we're in compliance, I'm good, and
Okay,
keep doing that, so.
Thank you.
That's good, thank you.
okay.
Great, thank you, Walter. So we'll be seeing you at the voting
See
meeting.
you in 2 weeks, yes.
Hopefully you'll be first on the agenda. We'll vote for that, we'll sign it, and you can go file our report.
Very good.
Great, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Walter, appreciate it.
First on the agenda.
Well, maybe second, maybe second.
And I asked to go tell him he didn't send it.
All right, and one thing I did want to mention too, as far as the MS4, the annual report, I know that they do, one of the complaints discussed what we call the 303D impaired water body. which is something that's brought to our attention quite often. So I asked Walter to do a little bit more research so I could understand what a 303D impaired water body is. And in this year's report, we have a list of the 303D water bodies, and I took a look at it, and Hillside Lake is noted as to being a 303D impaired water body. But when I looked at it, I see, and there's probably, I don't know, a list of probably 25 of them here, and they give us the suspected source. And for Hillside Lake, the
What page are
cause,
you on,
the
John?
clause, what's that?
What page are you on?
It's on the last page.
Okay.
In the report, it says cause pollutant, phosphorus is numerous, is throughout the report for most of these. But under Hillside Lake, it says phosphorus is a cause pollutant, and it says suspected source, it says on-site wastewater treatment systems, WTS. So they identified, I think also, DEC has also identified that there may be a problem with the septic systems out there in Hillside Lake, and that's part of the reason that was probably the reason it's on the 303, the impaired water body list, and it was put on the list in 2002. So I asked Walter to do a little research into that, and I appreciate that. Kind of clarifies things. I think Hillside Lake does have a lot of issues, and I do believe, as does this DEC report seems to bear out, that on-site septic system failures, or maybe not failures, but not operating as well as they should, could be part of the problem with Hillside Lake phosphorus loading. So, all righty, that's it for MS4. Number 2 is discuss our zoning omnibill. Our town planner can't be with us tonight, but I think we just received drafts. I plan to put this on the agenda for a public hearing in June. We've gotten us a compilation of different changes, proposed changes to the zoning ordinances, so I'll ask the attorney if he could give us a little run-through.
Okay, I'll sit in for the planner if that's possible. So basically, as the supervisor said, it would be considered for a public hearing in June. After tonight, it would be referred to the Town Planning Board and to the Dutchess County Department of Planning for their review and comments, and you'll get that back and combine that. And basically, as you know, over the last decade, every now and then we come to the board with an omnibus proposal. Many of these things are issues that come up very commonly before the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so when you consistently see the same variance request before your zoning board, you know you probably have an issue with the code as opposed to a particular lot. Okay, you can't have that many lots that have the same thing. So in here, a majority of this is based upon those issues, and others, things that have been suggested to be cleaned up by the planner based on people who own property have come in, met with her, and talked about things, you know, and to clarify. The first section about walls and fences, she's restructured how it is in the code. We've had a lot of issues with this because if you put up other than a chain link fence, 4-foot high chain link fence, if you put up a wall and it's under 4 feet, it doesn't need a state building permit. But once you go over 4 feet, you need a building permit by state code. So this provides that if it's up to 4 feet, and we've had the issue also in the community about the decorative part. As we all know, with a fence, the decorative part is supposed to face the neighbor, but we've had people who've put up block walls and have had the stone face, the finish towards the property as part of a barbecue, and they leave a rather ugly back of the block facing all their neighbors. So this would require that it be decorative type. It also, in one of the biggest variances that's requested before the zoning board, right now you can, as of right in your backyard, enclose it with a 6-foot high decorative fence. But that fence has to end with the back line of your home. So if you, on the back of your house, you draw a line out to the property lines, your 6-foot high fence can't go to the front of that. And many people, a tremendous number, have come to the zoning board to get a variance to allow the 6-foot fence up to the front line of the house. So if you draw a line across from the front of the house to each property line to bring it up. So this would make that an as-of-right issue, that you can have a 6-foot fence on your property up to the front line of the house. Anything beyond the front line of the house could be 4 feet as of right, and if it's any higher, you'd need a variance from the zoning board. And it also continues, that has to be within 2 feet of the property line. She's also proposing that we put right into the code this chart, which kind of simplifies the requirements of when you need a permit from the state code, et cetera, kind of cleans things up. Then, just to quickly move through some of the others, as you know, you created what's known as a transitional zone, B1A, and that's when you have residential property near an industrial property, and, you know, that, years ago, it was all residential or industrial without the other. Now they're starting to butt against each other. So the B1A zone was created to allow certain uses that transition from the business to the residential. So the proposal is to allow all the regular B1 uses in the B1A, except for gas stations, and any drive-through would be limited to more customary hours. That's when you have a residential transitioning next to a commercial or industrial zone. The next part, about 10, 12 years ago, the town board amended the zoning ordinance to require not only the 10-day notice or publication in the paper of that little hard-to-read notice when someone was in for a planning board application or a zoning board, and actually required the property to be posted with signs so that neighbors would know something was going on in the property. And then the town board also, back about 8 years ago, amended the code to say that homeowners or property owners, anyone within 500 feet of a proposed site should get a notice in the mail. And the whole thing is to create better transparency, to let everyone know what's going on. Well, there was a little glitch in that the sign had to go up 25 days before, and the mailing had to be 20 days before. So all this is trying to do is get the two to coincide. That would be property gets posted 20 days before, the mailing has to go out 20 days before. It also firmly says that if either of those two things are not done, the public hearing can't be heard on a particular night. It has to be adjourned to allow for that notice. And that's to make sure that the community as a whole, as well as the residents, know what's going on.
I know we probably can't do this, but I certainly would urge, as we've seen with these signs notification for the ZBA and the planning board, make the writing legible so we can read, when we drive by, we can read it.
We also under discussion, and it wasn't ready for this, is that many communities, because of that problem, are now requiring actually that a more permanent type sign be put on the property as soon as the application's filed. And that what it says on it is an application has been filed to the planning or zoning board. It has an application number, a website, and a phone number.
Okay.
So that way the community knows that something's going on there. They can follow it. And also it still would require a separate date put on there for a public hearing, but it would open up the process even more. And because a lot of people don't realize applications are filed with the planning, with the planning board especially, and can be before the planning board in a discussion stage for 6 or 8 months. Then they get notice at a public hearing, and they think that this whole thing's being rushed through in 2 meetings. But actually, it's been before the board for 6, 8 months, sometimes years. So by requiring the sign to be put up immediately would make people aware of it, and then they can start to follow it on a more timely basis. So that's what these administrative changes are. And also, we're also cleaning up when the town board decides to rezone a particular property, it's required that the property have a sign affixed to it, a mailing, and this is is closing the gap also about the dates, so it's... Then we have a big issue about what's a building, what's a structure, is this a structure or building? So the planner is recommending a change to the definition, which I think clarifies it. Also, the other issue that she's attempting to jump in on here, and we'll get into more details, but a shed. So a lot of variance requests before the zoning board is, right now, the shed has to be at least 25 foot from the line. Many people feel that that's, too far in for a shed. This would propose to lessen that to 15 feet, so it has to be within 15 feet of the property line. It also clarifies under the New York State Building Code, if the shed is 144 square feet or less, you don't need a building permit. But above that, you need a building permit, okay? So that this would also require your first shed, 144 square feet, you don't need a building permit. the second shed on the property, because there's been no limit proposed, so some people have multiple sheds, you would need a building permit, which then engenders a little review about the aesthetic impact and lot coverage, because you can't, put up so many sheds that your lot coverage is violations. It also limits the height, because there have been some issues where people come in and the shed's already built, and it's, like 17 feet high, and it's casts a shadow onto the property. So this is in keeping with the 144 square feet and 10 feet, which is what I believe the peak is on most average sheds that people put in the back. Okay. And then also, the big issue we had is cabanas. A lot of people in the town have pools. They built a cabana, so she's putting that into the code here as a accessory structure that's allowed. And the limitations are all similar to the other accessory buildings, 350 square feet or not 150, and not 115 feet high. Okay. The other question has come up a few times. We do have several large parcels, property owners who own 110 acres, and they want to build, they're building homes, and they'd like to have either a caretaker residence or something like that on the parcel. So it's being proposed that if your parcel is more than 10 acres, that you would be allowed to have a guest house or a caretaker's cottage. And that's set forth in here as far as, but it would have to be at least 10 acres or more.
Tom, I have a question about that.
Yes.
I remember in the past, there were some of those, it seemed like a portable home, but it looked like a little home.
Echo cottages.
Correct.
Yeah, that's in a separate ordinance, that's still allowed.
Okay.
But that's in a separate chapter and separate regulations for that. That's not eliminating any, but the Echo Cottage is limited to a family member and for a defined period of time while the person's, over 65, I think was the rule, or disabled, and once they left, then it had to be removed. And our accessory apartment law, which is something that we really have to get into, only allows an accessory apartment within the main structure. It doesn't allow it to be in a separate structure, so.
Well, unless it was built pre-85.
Well, that was the
Right.
problem with the old code.
1985,
Yeah.
right, if you had a building, a separate building prior to 1985, then you could put the accessory apartment in that,
And that's something we actually looked at ching a few
Correct.
years ago, which we'll take a look at.
to move
again.
that up, because now that's what, almost
1985 is quite a while.
a long
quite a
time
ways
ago.
back.
Then there's some clarification of the language, pardon me, about 5, 6 years ago, we created a special permit to allow for the remediation of gas stations that had contaminants. So it's been effectively used here in the hamlet on the Shell station, cleaned up the site, and it was used at Lake Drive.
Yep.
And in doing those two, we found that there was some confusion in it, so the proposed language here kind of clears that up. The only other one I'm aware of, I believe, is on 82 in the Taconic, across from the Dunkin' Donuts. There's one there, that's a contaminated site.
Yep.
And that's the only one that comes to mind right now, so this would clean up some of the language. Another issue that we've had is, as you know, the town board created a assisted living special permit, which is, something that's needed today in society. We have learned now that there's 2 types of assisted living. There's assisted living, which is a very higher level of supervision and care. It's less than a nursing home, but and then there's also what's known as a congregate care facility. So it's 3, so you have an individual home, then you have congregate care, which allows residents that are 55 or older or disabled to live with some supplement. Usually they just have a common cafeteria, but dining area, and they don't have all of the other services. Then when you go into a assisted living, they actually increase the level of service that's provided. It also triggers a Department of Health license for the rooming itself, because there's a greater level of medical supervision, 24-hour manning of care, et cetera, and then above that would be nursing home. So the proposal here would be to add in the same process, assisted living, and to also have congregate care. So it's the same type, it's just a little lesser level. It requires the person to be over 55. It can't be transient because they have to sign at least a one-year agreement to stay. Most of them sign longer agreements, and they can terminate it if they have to go to a high level of care or they pass away.
Tom, the congregate facility, they would own the property that they live in?
Not the resident, it would be owned by one owner.
Oh, okay.
And each unit would be, right.
Okay.
And it's only by special permit, and it's only within the Hamlet district, which is, what, a half mile each way of the Hamlet.
Well, they'll need water and sewer.
And it needs public water, public sewer, and
So that special law that we created, does it need to be amended, or?
that's what this would amend by adding this into it, right? And that's, I think, the summary of it all. I don't think I missed
Wow, you
anything.
did a good job.
Jumped in
The
there.
planner would have been proud of you. Again, and we just got this, I just got my copy today. I know that the attorney and the planner have been working on this with the building department and the planning and zoning for quite a few months now. So this, we just got, actually, today. We planned to have it earlier in the week, but just wrapped up today. So I'd like to have the public hearing in June, but if anybody has any questions now for the attorney, or as we go forward with the planner, just call, if you want to stop, or you want to call, email, and any changes that we need to make, we'll make sure the whole board is notified of any changes or what have you, or if any questions. So anything right now, you're more than welcome to ask, though.
I have a comment, Tom. While we're doing this, and we amended some of these laws as far as pre-existing conditions like fences and stuff, is it possible to also put something like a clause so that the zoning board, I see it many times, the zoning board is inundated with a lot of these.
Well, we have talked about
Specific
having, I think you're probably looking, like we looked at an amnesty. I don't know if that's where you're thinking about, where if you have a pre-existing situation,
Right.
like you say, a fence or a shed,
It's been for so many years.
But you
I
could
hear
come
some of these
in-
cases.
and under an amnesty program,
Well,
we discussed that.
No, what many communities do is, let's say you enact this, and we have now clear shed rules. So then, what you could do is enact a provision that would say that if you have a shed that's been on your property, I'll just use the number 10 years, and it's been there, or you bought the house and it was there already, things like that, which are common things that come to the zoning board. You could give that property owner 1 year to register the shed. And then that would more or less grandfather in that shed. Of course, if it came down or they made changes to it, then they would have to comply with the new law.
Yeah.
That can be done. It's, as the supervisor says, like an amnesty program. And if you want, we can, give you a
That would be very
proposal.
helpful. I hear a lot of people that they come up. This would kind of alleviate some of the work on the zoning. Once this is done, they already know that what they have to do.
Right, we would advertise and everything, give people a year, 18 months to come in and register. They would have to prove that it was there for whatever the criteria is, 10 years or whatever,
Right.
by a photograph or a neighbor's affidavit, something like that, so that you don't get, 100 sheds put up, and then they come in and try to say it was there.
What about also amending that law, John, about the chicken and the horses?
We didn't get that one into this round. The chickens, I think we should. Horses, I'm not sure.
We have a rule, I think it's
I think one
10
horse-
acres for the chickens.
10
and
acres for the
10
chicken,
acres.
2 acres for a horse.
I
yeah.
think we should
Chickens are
kind of,
very-
Well, if you
it
look
was
back,
brought up.
when zoning was adopted in '63, yeah, it was 2 acres for the first 2 horses, but at that time, you needed 6 acres for chickens.
But I think the problem,
They didn't like chickens and roosters back
well,
then.
I
no
think,
roosters,
I think the
just
roosters are a little noisy.
It was the
Right.
roosters.
And I
roosters
think
are
that's
right,
what
but
the
you
issue is,
In New York City, they're pets, the chickens.
But in
so-
all seriousness, the chickens are very popular now because people are
Ticks.
getting the eggs.
Yeah, eggs and ticks, too.
So actually, we
Ticks.
but the
probably.
rooster at sunrise
are
is not going to be
Yeah, I
a
know.
happy event.
Let's not discriminate, Tom, come on.
So, we actually, to be honest with you, we actually should look at down the road, doing something to allow chickens.
Yeah.
But we'll
Yeah,
have
I
to
think
regulate the
roosters-
roosters.
No roosters.
I think we should work on that, probably, kind of amend it,
Yeah.
or change it a little bit.
Well,
Well,
let's
I
get,
have some comments.
Yes.
So everybody knows, the public knows, New York State Code changed their building code recently. And when did that go into effect?
October?
October, and I think in
October.
January is when we really started.
October started rolling out, so.
It was adopted
there's-
in October, effective
Right,
January.
there's new rules that unregistered motor vehicles in their property and a whole slew of other things that people think that they can be allowed, and so they know it's not East Fishkill, it's New York State.
Well, you make a good point, because under the state law, the town has to administer the building code.
That's right.
And so there have been some substantial changes that people are like aghast at, and it's not the town. Because now if you go to reshingle your roof, you have to get a building permit. And the reason for that is because the state building code, and for safety, want to make sure people don't put the third or fourth layer of shingle on it. It's not creation of the town, it's a creation of the state. They also now require that when you change out a window. It used to be, if you were changing a window and you didn't change any structure around it, you could just do it. It was a repair or an upgrade. Now, they require you to get a permit because the windows have to be of a certain energy code level and they have to be, insulated or packed around the window, and it has to be inspected. So that's not creation of the town. That's creation of the state. But if the town doesn't enforce it, the town would then lose all of its state aid. Its town would be subject to the state coming in, taking over the administration of the building code, and in doing so, they backbill it. You had that years ago, I think it was
I was gonna
in
say,
Dover, I think.
Dover, somewhere,
And it cost
yeah.
the town a tremendous amount of money because the state,
New York State
charged
came
them a
in
lot.
and ran the building
Correct.
department, yep.
So that's a very good point for people to understand, that while we're the face of it, we're not the creator of it.
Well, yeah, I've been getting a lot of calls lately about certain changes in the code, and I just want people to know, do we have a link on our website where they could go to New York State to view the code? If we don't, we'll try and put that on there. So obviously, we can't lessen a regulation on the code, but
Correct.
we can make one more stringent, which we don't like to do, but
Well, you really can't, because you have to get state approval to make
to
any...
make it more stringent.
To make it more
Make it more
stringent.
stringent.
No,
No?
it's the other way. It's that way, you can't, it has to be at least what the state is, and if you want to make it more stringent, they have to approve it.
Okay, so saying the 144 square feet for the sheds, if
That's
we
their
want-
number.
That's their number, so we can't go to 165?
No.
Okay. What about the 15 feet off the side? of
That's
the
a zoning issue. We can
can
could
change
regulate
that.
that. We're taking it from 25 to
To
15.
15.
And we've had a lot of talk about that, because it forces you to bring your shed in closer to the house,
Right.
you want it close.
And everybody wants their sheds at the, probably on their
Closer, yeah,
property
so we
line.
kinda came up
So
with
I don't know if 5 feet makes a difference, but I don't know, maybe we could discuss the 10 feet instead of 15.
Yeah.
The fabric covered,
That's already eliminated.
that's already eliminated in New York State code, so people know if there's a fabric-covered shed, it's not allowed by New York
Correct.
State. So, that's another big one that I
In
get a lot
fact,
of phone
the
calls about.
exterior roof of a shed, even if it's under 144 square feet, has to have a material that's accepted as a finish of a home. So it has to be a siding or shingle, et cetera. It can't just be plywood or anything anymore.
Understood, and a lot of seniors calling about allowing assisted living or an alternate care facility in town. I'm happy that we're
We need something.
broadening.
And I also think when we get into the accessory apartments, if we modify that, that would make that a more flexible tool for people with their parents who they wish to have live with them, or another family member. Of course, it brings an area of regulation. We'd have to regulate it more, but that's a way that the town board can enable a more flexible housing stock for
Right,
that.
that would be great.
So in other words, that's creating like a mother and daughter kind of facility?
Correct, yeah.
And that would not, once, let's say, the parent either moves or,
Well, the key to it would be that it has to be owner occupied. When you run into a problem is that when the town allows you to have an accessory apartment and you decide not to live there anymore, then it becomes a rental two-family, which is where you get your maintenance problems. But most towns, if they do the accessory apartment, they require that the main part of it has to be the owner, the principal, and that if it sells, the new owner has to reapply to continue it, and the home occupancy continues.
Well, we have that right now. We have accessory units that are allowed. And we've talked about that.
But it
They should come in
doesn't, but it
annually.
doesn't clearly provide for owner occupancy.
Well, yeah, I thought it did.
No, you have to be either the owner
Yeah,
or
you
a
have to be the
immediate
owner.
family member.
Right,
be
right.
One occupant.
One
of the house.
occupant, yeah. But then we were talking about actually making that change so you could we knew that had to be your family member on an annual basis.
And it should be renewable at some time period, so it could be monitored.
So there's an
upon
administrative
sale, right.
process to go with all this, too.
And I'd like to thank the planner for her work, the
Yeah, she
attorney
does a
also.
great job.
Oh,
Thank
the
you.
attorney's here, so
And the
no-
attorney, I said.
Oh.
Thank
Attorney
you.
doesn't do a thing.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions on it?
So you're saying now, if I redo my window,
Yes,
I gotta come in and get a permit?
correct.
And it's
Whether
gotta be
you
inspected.
change the header or whatever, you have to change out a window, you need a building permit.
So I think we're gonna have to go back and look at fees.
Oh, we'll probably have to add fees.
We'll be
sure,
adding
yeah.
various
Well,
fees.
nominal fees,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, we don't want to.
stuff that you should have been able to do for
For free.
For free.
Right.
But again, this is New York State. I mean, it's not like.
Right, but we have to
and
pay
I
the
get calls
inspector
on
to
this
go.
also, you know, and it's
Right,
New
the
York
other
State.
thing, the other thing is that, I had a lot of comments from the people is that if they come for a new permit to install a window, that allows the building department now to go back and re-inspect the whole property. And I've had people that, for changing an existing window, they had to do extensive work on commercial
Well,
properties.
on commercial?
No, no, it was just changing a window. So am I saying, like Peter is saying right now, because,
Well, you raise a good point, because typically when we go out for a new building permit, we do a pre-site
Right,
inspection.
right. And I don't think
there's-
necessarily for windows, but for additions and things,
Right.
they go out and
So
they
we have
just.
to decide how we're
Well,
gonna
look.
handle these little
And-
minor things.
But usually what happens is only if it's a life safety issue or something like that, that it's, I think the inspector would go, and if they can walk to the window and see it, and there's not a wire hanging out with Scotch tape on it or something like that, I think there's not going to be an issue. Commercial is a little different, because the commercial properties not only have the building code, they also have the uniform fire code, which is, well, there are some provisions for houses, but it's much different.
For commercial.
So that in that case, if they go in, they may be looking under the fire code, and that could require changes, yeah.
it would be nice if we, and when we go and do, these kind of inspections, not to be so harsh on the people, I mean.
Well, I don't think we're harsh. I think that we have a good, but it has to be done. You know, people have to be notified they have a
There's
violation.
another situation where a person may say they want a window and have 3 open building permits.
There's another one.
That's a different issue.
You give them another permit if they have 3 open permits.
And of course, a common problem is when the inspector goes, there's an in-ground swimming pool with no fence enclosure. And that, of course, is a life safety issue, because a child or somebody could come on the property and fall in the pool. So that's a violation that they would definitely have to step up for. Or if the fence is there, but there's, no gates, which is a common thing. Because in the prosecutions in the court, most of the building code violations are really life safety issues. And then the other major part of them now is the property maintenance, because you get 5 or 6 unregistered vehicles, you get vehicles that are in pieces laying in a residential zone, campers that aren't parked in the side or rear yard like the code requires, things like that, which usually emanate from a neighbor complaining because they feel it's an
The
eyesore.
one that I don't care for is the fact you can't have any unregistered vehicles on your property.
You have one.
No, you
No
can't.
more.
No more.
Some
Oh, the
towns-
state code, but you can exempt
Some
that.
towns exempt classic
Yeah.
vehicles, so if you have a vehicle
do they really?
older than
Oh,
25
good,
years.
good.
So you're
So your
storing out
car
a
be
Camaro,
safe, huh?
you can
Yeah,
keep
that's only because I won't buy a new car.
Yeah.
It's not because it's historic, I just won't buy a new car. Just so, to Peter's point, my furnace was 10 years old, so I called the
You
furnace
need a
guy in
permit
to
now.
clean it. He comes in to clean it, and he comes in, and he says, we have a problem, you have to get a new furnace. This was in January, like the first week in January, so I had to get a new furnace. I went down to the building department and said, do I need a building permit? She says, yeah, as of January 1st, you need a building permit to install a new furnace. It was $100, but what are you gonna do? So I feel the pain, Peter, I feel the pain. Had I done it in December, it would have been no problem.
I
So
will
wait,
add on that note, furnaces, generators, electrical services, even if you have a violation or an open building permit,
Yeah.
we still issue that permit immediately
Yeah.
for anything of,
No, they were good, because it was.
System to your house,
yeah.
a vital system
We
to your house.
appreciate the speed with which that.
So if I put a new roof on my shed, I'm gonna have to get a permit now.
Only if it's for chickens.
Only if it's over 144 square feet.
But you do have to keep, the siding has to be.
Right, it has to be the same kind of
Anyway.
materials, wordings here.
Anybody has any thoughts or questions, please feel free to contact the attorney,
Some
the
of those
planner.
sheds that you have, Pete, don't conform, you know?
Like,
I know
you
where
tell
you're
me I
going
gotta
with
put
that.
shingles on my roof, and now you're gonna charge me for a permit too.
All right, and we will have this on for a public hearing in June, so that's that. Talking about our friends up in Albany, New York State. Oh, my goodness, I don't know how it happened, but, you know, New York State Legislature, Governor Cuomo requested that when they pass their budget, they pass a bill as a part of the budget that states that they will force municipalities to share services. It's a mandate. I got an email from the Department of State about a month ago. Come to a mandatory meeting up in New Paltz. All the town supervisors and mayors, we all schlepped up there. And they're serious. I mean, I can't believe it. Now, originally, when the governor proposed this bill, it was you will share services or you will lose state funding. Now, we don't get a lot of state funding. We probably get about $300,000 a year for highways. We don't get a lot of state funding, but we do get that. We appreciate that. So we went up to New Paltz, and I tell you, I had probably 50 or 60 very unhappy mayors and supervisors. We share services, Town of East Fishkill. We share an assessor. We share a planner. We have a joint landfill. We do things with other towns. We unofficially, the highway department works with other highway departments. We do this anyway. But the governor says that any previous shared services do not count. They have to be new shared services. So what they took away, they said they could not link that to taking away our state aid, which I was happy about. So there's really not going to be any financial punitive damages. But, so what they did, so this is the governor's idea, the county executive of every county is going to convene a board, and the county executive is in charge of providing a list of shared services they're going to propose, and all the supervisors and mayors are going to be required to vote on it. And it's really, I find we're all very upset because we do this anyway, but I got to tell you, the calendar is very, very, I guess, dreadful. I mean, it's by August 1st, 2017, countywide shared service plan presented by the county, has to be presented to the Dutchess County Legislature to provide feedback, request modification of plan. Then they must hold 3 public hearings. Then by September 15th, 2017, panel must take action to finally approve, modify, or disapprove the plan. And by October 15th, county executive to disseminate panel-approved plan to the public and hold a public presentation of said plan. And I do believe it's probably got to be on the ballot in November. So talk about onerous. It just really blows my mind. New York State and Governor Cuomo telling us that what we have to do. Just let everybody know, the county executive's coming up with a list of proposals for us, and we'll see how it goes. But this is our friends in New York State. We do this. We are pretty good at cost savings, but we'll be meeting with the county executive probably, I'd say, early next month to go over the first of several meetings on this. And it takes time. This is what the other thing, the governor thinks we just sit around and don't do anything. But all this is a lot of work, and the county executive will be leading it up. So I just wanted to mention that.
Mr. Supervisor, did you say that this will not be linked to any aid?
Yeah, and that was that was the only question I asked. Well, I made a few comments that weren't very friendly, but the only question I asked at the meeting from the Department of State people, which were getting pretty beaten up at that meeting, was if we don't comply, or for some reason we can't comply, will this be a problem as far as the state aid we received? He said, no, originally that was the plan, but that's no longer the plan. They couldn't link the two, so we're okay. But still, it's just another onerous thing from our friends up in New York State. And it just came with the New York State budget, so just want to let everybody know about that. And that's about it. I did want to talk a little bit. We had number 4 on the agenda, Route 52 water and sewer, and Scott's been working on our Route 52 water and sewer projects that are going on down there. Obviously, everybody sees we put in the sewer main down there. And
Still working on that, yes.
That's going
Yep.
pretty well, though.
Yes, we should be, next 4 to 6 weeks, hopefully, ready to
Really?
operate, yeah.
And John Jay and the county just sent me requests, because the county did provide us, I think it's $1.2 million job, $1.2 million.
Yes.
But they did say they would give us $100,000 towards the job, so I sent them a progress report.
Which we had some change orders at the last meeting, so that helps cover those change
Oh,
orders.
good, good. So, excuse me, I sent up they wanted an update on the progress, so I sent it up the other day, but we will have John Jay connected to sewer in time to open up in September, correct?
Yes,
That's the plan.
that's the plan.
So, you want to just talk a little bit about our water and sewer stuff?
Well, it's, the thing on the agenda for Route 52 water and sewer, I believe, is for the new improvement areas that we're looking at.
Yep, that'll be on the west complex,
I'll give it-
and the vacant lots on these complexes.
Right. Which is to take advantage of the assignment of water from Global Foundries to 500,000 gallons per day of assignment.
Yep,
So we're creating a new improvement area for those vacant lots on the east campus and basically all the lots on the west campus.
Yep.
Minus the dome parcel, because that's already been, set aside to be serviced by Shenandoah. So that's really the basis of this report, is just to create that new boundary, those parcels, some of which are still in a subdivision process.
Right,
On the
right.
east side.
And to that, we'll be talking about this. I think the public hearing on the water is at the next meeting, as a matter of fact. We'll hold
Yes.
a public meeting on
Right.
the expansion of the water improvement area.
Right, well, it's a new
We're
area.
gonna form a new.
It's a new area
water-
to take advantage
Yeah.
of the assignment. There'll be no capital cost, direct capital cost, other than engineering and any legal expenses associated with the formation of that district. It's envisioned that any new infrastructure would be paid for by the developer.
Hold it a little bit.
Paid for by the developers. So there'd be no, bonding or anything associated with that. So it's really just a regulatory requirement to
Yeah.
form that boundary for
Administrative,
the
basically, creating the
health
water
department
improvement
and for
area.
the DEC.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have to do that. Dutchess County Water and Wastewater has supplied us with a contract proposal that Tom's been working on. We'll be meeting with them to work on that proposal from them. But we need Dutchess County Water and Wastewater. We're going to take an assignment from Global Foundries of 500,000 gallons per day. Without the take-or-pay provision, Global
Right.
will take care of the take-or-pay provision, which is in itself onerous.
Right.
And will allow us 500,000 gallons per day to supply the West Complex, except for the dome area, which already has a supply of water. And I believe how many vacant properties on the, it was 6 of them,
Two on the east
2 on the east and
and the balance of the west.
the balance of the west.
Yes.
And actually, the,
Dome is actually, this is available to the dome. It's really more of a timing thing. In other
Right.
words, that assignment is for the entire former IBM campus, which the dome is a portion of. It's just based on the timing.
right,
The assignment wasn't in place, so we went ahead and said, okay, the dome's going to connect to Shenandoah.
yeah,
Depending on how everything evolves and when
Well,
the dome actually opens,
as-
that part of it could change a little
right,
bit.
and it very probably will change, because John Jay has indicated that they would actually like to take water from our Shenandoah water system. The main is right out front. John Jay High School would like to tie into that. We're limited by Dutchess County Department of Health as far as how much water we can buy from Fishkill at this point. So we're very strapped as far as water down in that area. But if, as you say, it comes available from the county assignment for the
Qualify was the word I
dome,
was looking for. They
then
do
we could
qualify for that
swap
water.
over the John Jay water from the Shenandoah, which would
And what
make
we want
them,
to try to do is,
Yeah.
when the dome does make a connection, we want to pick a point that they don't have to reinvent the wheel and do a lot more infrastructure,
Yeah.
that it's like easily swapped over.
right, because they have an investment already in their project.
They will, right.
So that's the water that we'll be looking at, and we'll be looking at that at the next meetings. We do need to form that district.
Right.
The improvement area, and that will satisfy the county. They will sign the contract with the county for the assignment of 500,000 gallons a day. And there's a lot of work going on with the East Complex as far as redevelopment of that site. As everybody knows, it's been subdivided. They're actually wrapping up all the issues that were left with the planning board approval. So we're hopeful that maybe there'll be some kind of redevelopment project going there in the next 6 months.
So, can I ask,
Sure.
if John Jay is going to then join the Shenandoah Water,
Shenandoah,
okay? Now, that assignment that we have of water there, that allotment, we've already said the dome can have. So how are we going to accommodate both?
The school is making application to the health department
Okay,
to get more water from Fishkill.
And to that end, the supervisor coordinated a meeting with the Department of Health, which had the town of Fishkill, the village of Fishkill, the town of East Fishkill, and the Wappinger School District at the table with the approval authority, the Board of Health. And the village is willing to sell a little more water to the town of Fishkill. Town of Fishkill then would push that water through their pipes to our connection. We would then take that water through our pipes and deliver it to the school. So that's the concept. There's some agreements that Fishkill, the village, and the town have to work out. And the other issue that's being resolved is storage. The school district
Right.
engineers
Yeah,
had to come up with what their storage needs were. So that's in the process. The school district is supposed to file the application, which is going to be the vehicle by which the health department will then work with all the players to put it together.
Now, why I ask is the 500,000 allotment, if we're going to start, divvying that up,
Yep.
we want to make sure that we have enough for development for the East Complex, once those lots get subdivided and new businesses come in.
I think we set aside 200,000 gallons per day of that allotment just for these complex as we speak.
Okay.
It's a little bit, because we really don't know what's coming. It's hard to plan for something so nebulous. But I think as we start seeing new businesses come in and new development come in over there, we'll be able to figure out if we're going to need more or less. And I got to tell you, I still think that
Well,
that
industrial
that
uses,
interchange off of Lime Kiln, because we do have an agreement to take over that back road, and in the event that becomes a town road in the back that goes all the way down to Rothel, it's going to be the last undeveloped parcel on Route 84. And we will have water, we will have sewer, we'll have a town road that goes all the way around the back. So I think once these things start coming together, that whole industrial area is going to really come alive, so.
'Cause
And
after
keep-
all-
Keep it off 52,
And that's the best
Right, that's the
part.
key.
a very important thing.
Because after all the hard work that we've done, and we did the GEIS and everything for that site, and now we're going to come short because of water,
Well, I think, though,
This
that,
other thing we can add, though, this assignment of 500,000 is really a starting point.
Yeah.
There's millions of gallons of excess water
Okay.
available, but we don't need to secure that at this time.
Okay.
So basically, Global Foundries is saying we have an excess, basically, of 500 that we're paying for anyway, that we could work with the town, make it available to the town without the take-or-pay provision.
Okay, so if development
And somebody
comes,
comes in and says we need 1 million gallons, and we got to go up to the county and
Right.
negotiate a deal.
okay, very good. Thank you.
So,
And as far as the sewer, we're kind of in a holding pattern on sewer, because again, we don't know what's coming in, the demand requirements. We know we have some excess capacity already to get something at least started.
yeah.
And then I think if a project presents itself and we can get a handle on what the demand is, we can go from there and finalize that.
And we're going to see what's going to happen. The sewers, as we speak, with the Route 52 sewer area that we've already created, with the west and the east complex, there's going to be more sewer districts to come as they come along. So we'll be addressing those, I would say, probably in the next 3 to 5 months. So this could be an ongoing process of water and sewer for the east and west former IBM properties, so.
And just one thing to circle back to, we have a contract with Fishkill for 80,000 gallons a day currently. So we don't have to amend our contract, I don't believe, with Fishkill. We already have that contract. The problem is they can't supply that amount of water right now. And that's why they need to go to the village to make up the difference, so.
So how much are we utilizing of that 80,000 now, before John Jay? or-
They've only allotted us 35.
Okay,
Right
so
now,
our
we're
contract
using-
says we could take 80, but we have to get approval from Dutchess County.
correct.
Right.
And they're
They
at
basically
35
lowered that number from 80 down to 35.
Okay.
because of issues in the Fishkill system.
Right, redundancy and storage and everything else.
Right.
And that water that comes from the Shenandoah Fishkill, it's shared also with private owners in the area over there, right?
No.
While Orthopedic Associates is connected as an out-of-district user, the John Jay Gas Station is connected as an out-of-district user. Yeah,
But
are
the
you talking
pri-
about those immediate?
Right, what about the Shenandoah water that we get from Fishkill?
That goes
That's
up,
the same line?
that goes up to the district up on
Shenandoah Road.
Shenandoah Road. There's about 189 homes that were connected. But as
That
far
the
as a
same
lo-
water that we're talking about, or is
with
it?
same water,
From
that's the
Fishkill.
35,000 gallons. And then any of these other ones that we've been adding, we've had to work with the health department And now with the Village of Fishkill willing to give Fishkill 15,000 gallons more, that should take care of John Jay's issue.
Right, right now, we're maxed out.
And then the town of Fishkill is working to resolve, it's a chloride problem, and in their system, so once they can bring down the chloride levels, they would be able to fulfill their obligation to us for the 80,000, and that would be available.
Talking about that, let's talk a little bit about county water, because in April 2013, I learned what trihalomethanes were. It was very unfortunate that Dutchess County is sending us water with high trihalomethanes. It was over limit, so Dutchess County was selling us water, and Dutchess County Department of Health was giving us a violation notice, which really I found very ironic. But I do believe Dutchess County did a $18 million upgrade to the filter, to the plant. And they're all up and running, right?
They're up and running, and I think around maybe February, we started seeing a, real noticeable decrease in the levels,
Yeah,
which has
yeah.
so far continued, so.
Okay, good.
We haven't been in the warm season yet, which is when they really spike, but early indication is that it is effective. So
Good.
we're continuing to monitor that.
Good.
And we are well below the MCL right
And
now.
they haven't added that to the bill yet,
Haven't added it to the.
but that
bill
will
yet.
be coming as another surcharge, but
But
they
they
have
do,
cleaned
I
up the
think,
water.
another project they're looking at is a big storage tank up there, which will be another capital
help,
improvement
yeah.
that the cost will trickle down.
That's right, that's right. But that was another one of the problems that they didn't tell us about
They didn't tell us
years
about,
ago,
right.
that the storage
I think it's like
tank,
a 5 million gallon tank or.
yeah, and it was an
something like
old tank, and they couldn't get the
that. It
operations
leaks and
working. Yeah.
It leads to problems.
So,
I think their bills went up. Some of those bills went up, water bills.
Oh.
That area went up this last year.
So Scott,
It's possible, we'll have to see.
I remember the cost of the water coming from Fishkill was a little bit spiked.
Right.
Is the county water an issue? Is there a problem? We can't get more county water rather than...
County water
buy-
is more expensive,
County is more expensive still?
yeah.
Well,
Well, with the take or pay
the,
and,
the net cost of the county water is more expensive, and by that I mean, the way it works is, health department will tell you how much water you need for a particular project, okay? And you need 1,000 gallons a day, okay? The health department also tell you that, in the summer months, that amount's gonna peak, okay? And typically, they use a factor of, say, 2. Sometimes it can be negotiated, but let's just say 2. So in order for you to have the 2,000 gallons a day that you may need
Move
just
the
a
mic.
few days a year, you have to have a contract for 2,000 gallons, okay? And the county says, okay, whatever your contract amount is, you pay for that, whether you use it or not. So even though you may only be using 1,000 gallons a day, most of the time, you're really paying for 2,000 gallons a day because the health department kind of weighs in and says you have to secure your maximum allotment. So what happens is, in effect, your rate could be double what it really should be because you're paying that maximum day. And that's really the rub with
That's the
buying
take or
water
pay.
from the county.
That's been the problem. We've looked at actually, we bought Fishkill Plains water because we needed water. We could have tied into the county. The county connection, we had a connection right there for Bretview and all them. When you looked at the cost from the county, with the take or pay provision, which effectively doubled the cost, you couldn't do it. So, and the counties thought, I'm told, you have to buy whatever, you have to pay for whatever water your allotment is. We don't care how much
They're
you use.
reserving that for you.
So, yeah, yeah,
It's like
so,
extortion.
And Fishkill's
Is
running
that
into the
illegal,
same.
Tom?
a little bit,
Well, that's a little wrinkle with Fishkill right now, because the village,
yeah.
seeing what the county does,
Is doing the same
is
thing.
wanting to do the same thing to Fishkill.
But that's the problem with it, so.
but that's the reason why, when we were evaluating things, the Cannon Well Field becomes very valuable to the town, because you get rid of all those problems. At the time it started, and probably still is, a better quality water.
Yeah, oh,
Doesn't have
absolutely.
trihalmethane,
Yeah.
and you only pay for what you draw out of it. You don't
For what you
pay,
draw.
so it's a much more efficient and cost-effective source, and that's why it was recommended, and the board agreed to develop that.
Oh, absolutely, and even looking at Fishkill Plains, which we took over, I mean, we purchased a system for, I think, $850,000, probably put $500,000 into it when we had the county tap right there. You couldn't afford it for the consumers, though, so.
And in fact, the Hopewell Precision water source, the residents pressured not to take the county water. So that's another reason why
Take or pay.
we had to develop it, because of the take or pay and the water quality. And those folks brought up a very good point. Why should we go from a contamination or possible contaminated water source to one that has issues? So
Mm-hmm.
What makes the county water so expensive?
Oh, a lot of charges on it.
That facility where they
Well,
take it
the
from
city
river.
The
and,
water itself's not too bad. I think we pay $350,
But then you get
$1,000.
the surcharge.
But it's that
from-
double effect.
Yeah, the double effect, but there's a lot of other
It's the
charges.
contract, so $350 effectively becomes $7, plus our operator's expense and our administration, and next thing you know, you're at $10 a
but when it
thousand.
was set up, the two Poughkeepsies own the water source, the filtration plant up by Marist College. And so they decide that they want payers other than themselves to absorb a lot of the cost. So they come up with a cost factor. They then sell the water to the county. All the county does is own the pipe that goes from Marist College to IBM. And there's an upcharge then to pay for the pipe and the operation of the pipe, so that the water starts, it goes through the filter plant, there's a cost, through the pipe, there's a cost, and it comes out, and then they enhance it with this take-or-pay provision, so it's,
Would it be,
But this is-
John, since they wanted to use shared services, could this be something that we could use to benefit us, create a consortium with other localities so that we could buy the water at a lower cost and benefit everybody?
We've spoken with them many occasions, and there's some that just will not let go of their take-or-pay. They make more money on the take-or-pay than they make on selling the actual water. That's the, and we've asked them, many communities have, that's the problem.
and that makes the water cost in the town and city of Poughkeepsie artificially lower,
Yeah.
because
We pay
any of the users
25%
are...
more. something.
Fortunately, the only part of East Fishkill, other than the industrial site that uses the water, is Hopewell Glen, but that would be...
We're even making
and-
adjustments.
And we're making adjustments there to shift that over to moderate the costs and the quality.
But
That's river water.
That's river
River
water.
water, that's it.
But that's why it's really important that the assignment we're getting from Global Foundries, they're taking care of
Why
the
it has
take-or-pay.
trihalomethane.
So that's
not
making it,
stuff
competitive. And for a business that's gonna come in there, they need a competitive price for it. So it's very important. So we have to wrap up the administrative formation of this area, the improvement area, so we can sign the contract with Dutchess County. And the one thing, we do have some costs in-house, and this we could talk about real quick, engineering, legal costs for this. So, but we can't apportion them right now until, could we apportion them later, Tom?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Whenever you establish a district, the initial costs can be fronted, if you will,
Yeah,
by the
yeah.
town, and then reimbursed once you put the
And
district
that's what we're
into
gonna be doing
operation.
for the cost, because it does cost for
It's
Scott.
not substantial, but, you know, we just
Yeah.
put a number of 50,000.
50,000, we should recoup
More to
from all
conservative,
of
I
our
think.
Because when
work.
somebody's ready to use it, there has to be an engineering design done. It's minor on the legal side,
I'm always.
except for bond
All
counsel if
right,
there's a problem.
bond counsel. All right, and that's, any questions on 52? Because I would like to actually, we're going to hold a public hearing at the next meeting, and just to do the administrative establishment of this here, this improvement area. All right, and finally, an update on Worley Homes. We have met with a representative from the Worley Homes District. We've had some progress talking about, there's a value to the pipes in the ground, I'll put it that way. There's a value to the pipes that are in the ground at Worley Homes. I'm not sure, there's a lot of issues that they have with their system, and it's just not, it's not being a real easy negotiation, I'll put it that way. We're going to continue to meet with them, see what we can work out as far as price-wise. But there is a value to the pipes in the ground. I'll leave it at that. We're trying to do our best with that. But Tom, you and I talked, and I hate to bring this up, but would we consider them in default of their, of the services? We talked about this a little bit.
Well, as the board may or may not know, the county health department has a administrative proceeding against the Hopewell Service Corporation, which is the company that provides water to Worley Homes. Based on the meeting that you had with the community, it appears that a majority of the community would be in favor of establishing a town water district, and the same residents would pay, but the town would be the operator of the system. So the first step in that, as we've done in other similar situations, is to reach an agreement with the owners of the private company. Under the law, if the owner of a private company that provides water or sewer service walks away or becomes in default of their obligations, it automatically, by law, becomes the town's responsibility to step in and operate it and take it over. So based on the circumstances that now present, we've discussed the fact that they may very well be deemed to be in default of their obligations, and by virtue of New York state law, the town would have the authority to take over the operations of the company. Could be avoided if there's an
We can work
agreement
out,
that
yeah.
everybody's accepted with, but.
But it's just this one option that we should say everybody should be aware of. This is a possibility. We're going to continue to try to work these things out with the company, but, you know, that's only half the battle, because the other half the battle is we do have to meet with Dutchess County Department of Health and present them with a plan to bring the system that's in violation up to code, but we have to do it, we have to have an understanding of the milestones it's going to take to get it up there, because this isn't going to happen overnight. This is a 3-year project.
And there's been 2 recent developments, if I might add. One is a violation on the chloride levels. Violation went out to the community.
Oh, that's right, yep.
And then the health department has recently advised them that they had to do a Guidi study, which we know all about
Guidi
Guidi
is-
studies. Groundwater influence on the water supply, which the chloride might be another indicator of.
Yeah, oh, okay,
Because they're within 200 feet of a water body.
yeah.
So that's, you know, a pretty exhaustive analysis that has to be
Wow.
done that potentially can lead to a large expense if it's found to be
Right.
under the influence.
If you were have to rehabilitate, and we've looked at this originally, to rehabilitate those wells and the storage tank, it's a big issue. Logistically.
We looked at that 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
But for us to pipe in water from one of our systems, takes care of all that. We're, you know, how is our water tank coming, by the way? I see they're working on the in the
The
recreation.
foundation is poured, and I think
Yeah.
they're working on backfilling it now. Yeah.
Good. So this would help with our storage over there. I believe that would be the ones that would serve Revere, Worley.
We could serve all those
Yeah,
parcels,
yeah.
yes.
So we were going to address the storage, and we can run a main over there. Actually, the water from Worley would come from across the street. So it's better than trying to rehab these wells on an existing well site. So it's.
Because both Worley and Revere, you know, not good quality water.
One
tough sites.
question too, bringing that up, we did look into, there's another grant that the governor has provided to us, a new water grant.
The W2A grant, yes.
Right, but we cannot meet the deadline this round.
It's a different type of program. It is an actual grant, I think up to 60% of eligible cost to a maximum of $3 million. And they just announced round 3. The deadline is June 23rd. But unlike the current subsidized program that we qualified for, in order to apply for this grant, it already has to be a town district, which Worley is not, and we have to go through the whole SECR, we have to go through SHPO, we have to do a bond resolution for the borrowing.
Right.
And already have to have a preliminary design done, so there's a lot more
We could never meet this deadline.
requirements that you have to meet to even be eligible. They're really looking for almost shovel-ready projects, which just would not be. So
The plan is, I think.
deadline's June 23rd, we're never going to make that. I mean,
But-
we kicked that around for this year, we're not going to
Right.
make that. But they do believe there will be a 4th round.
Next year.
And these are annual
Yeah.
allocations.
So by next year, we'll be making the application for this grant.
Right, and that grant potentially could be used for, you know, more of the remaining distribution lines. We did amend our original engineer's report. We submitted it by the May 1st deadline. I think we submitted somewhere around $2.2 million. In my report, I think I had $1 million for distribution line replacement. There is a cap, says you can't spend more than 50% of the total bond amount on distribution lines, because it's really a quality grant. So the million became 900, still not too bad, not too bad. So that's been submitted, and I think we're in good shape with that.
Okay, good. Any questions on Worley? It's a knotty problem, but I think we'll get there.
So Tom, as far as, that would be kind of like a legal expropriation of this property because of default on health issues, right?
Well, but with a default, when the company was formed back 40 years ago, the town board had a consent. So to get that consent, the property owner or the owner of the company agrees, if I go into default, it's your system. So that's different than if they were functioning, we didn't have that obligation, then it would be an eminent domain or an appropriation of property. So it's two different
We
things.
don't have to go to court, that's my.
We have to go to court, but it's not, we wouldn't end up having to pay for it. We would be going to court to enforce the rights under law that we have, that you're not operating it right, we have to take it over and operate it. So if they didn't just give us the keys, yes, we'd have to go to court.
Yep, we'll keep working at it. All righty, I think that's it for the discussion part. I did want to ask for the board members for any reports and allow for any open discussion tonight. So any reports? Councilman Cassidy?
Just a couple of little things. Highway report. Projects have been being undertaken this month. They're paving on 3 dirt roads, Strawberry Welts and Blueberry Hill. Milling and paving on Old Route 52 and Seaman Road to Stormville Post Office. Milling and paving on Lime Kiln from Park and Ride to East Hook Crossroad. And there's been paving on Miller Hill Road above the TSP to the county line. Other projects the highway department's completing is they finished picking up all the broken curbs from the winter. A couple of days from completing the lawn mowing damage along town roads. Started in-house paving and patching of remaining town roads. Still in progress of rebuilding 208 stormwater basins throughout our town. We'll be starting to repair the driveway apron damage on the plow trucks. Under Parks and Recreation, the crew had all the fields ready for the winter, and they're all being used actively. The town gardens and monument areas are completed and growing, and townwide flower barrels are being readied for planting, and we'll be installing a split rail fence along the roadway between the gazebo and the stream. So some people actually think that this is their own private off-road dirt park. Police report, the police department continues to participate in several traffic safety and enforcement programs funded by the state and federal grants. With the prom and graduation season upon us, we will have extra patrols targeting drunk and drug driving, cell phone use and distracted driving, and seatbelt and child safety seat violations. One of their goals is that no graduating class should have an empty chair for a lost classmate on graduation day. Good news, Officer Bona is back on duty after recovering from surgery, and the department is applying along with the Dutchess County Police agencies for a municipal innovations grant to help fund their participation in the Dutchess County Drug Task Force.
Great, thank you very much. And our participation in the Dutchess County Drug Task Force has been very good. Dutchess County's got a terrific bunch up there, and our officer that's up there does a very good job. Councilman D'Alessandro.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss our little report on the Red Wing All-Inclusive Day at the Beach. That's going to be July 29th, a Saturday. Councilman Franco and I have, we went to the Rec Advisory Board asking their help, and they were very helpful.
Good.
And they are willing to grant us rec funds to spend if we don't get things donated, like paving and painting and fixing up of the facility that we need to do. A new dock and other items that we're currently trying to get donated. The members of our committee are working very, very hard, and I am very thankful for all of them. And it's tremendous outcry from the people in our community that want to help with this. It's really, really nice.
Wow.
And Councilman Franco will touch on a couple other things, but I also wanted to ask if it's possible, if we can offer a discount for the Red Wing yearly pass to law enforcement. A lot of law enforcement attend, and they have families, and I was wondering if we can...
I do think, I'd have to check, I think we do it for fire people involved with the fire department, first responders and such. Why wouldn't we just add police officers also?
So if we
So
could
we
do
maybe
that,
do that, I think we'd probably have to do that as a town board resolution.
maybe this
in-
month?
Maybe this month to include them in the
That would be
the
great.
discount. We'll take a look at that.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor. And Councilman Franco, you want to add?
Yeah, just quickly, we met with a young gentleman, Brandon Bernard, a Boy Scout, who's looking to do an Eagle Scout project, and he's agreed to build 3 12-foot handicap-accessible picnic tables.
Wow.
For us. The cost will be $324 per table, but they will, they're going to do some fundraising, and they will at least raise half of that money to secure those tables for Red Wing. and he'll be overseeing a group of people. Also, we've received donations from Healy Chevrolet for $500, East Fishkill Rotary for $500. We've got commitments from the Hudson Valley Credit Union, who will provide some financial aid as well as help during that day, and from McDonald's.
Wow.
So we've hit some of the banks as well, and we're waiting on them. But like Councilman D'Alessandro said, the community is really pulling together, and we're really going to make this day happen, and it's
Wow.
going to be great.
Very
The county's
good.
very happy about it.
Very good, very impressive project you guys are doing.
Also, the highway superintendent has been very helpful. We're meeting with him next week to go over what needs to be done, and he thinks that some of the work can be done in-house, so we'll save
Very
some
good.
money there also.
It's amazing what happens when the town comes together. This is very good. Terrific. Anything else, Councilman?
That's it.
Okay, Councilman Franco?
Quickly, on rec, the leagues are obviously in full swing. The weather is getting a lot better, maybe not this weekend, but very grateful for Butch Kidney and for Billy and his staff, his men, for all the great job that they do. The fields are very playable, and we're hearing a lot of good things about them. And on Tuesday, I'll be broadcasting a Little League game. We're going to do another one of those games. We hear a lot of great things about them, so it's always a lot of fun.
Oh, good.
And then quickly on the Hometown Heroes, just a reminder, next meeting, May 25th, as the meeting starts, we're going to have the American Legion here, as well as we will present some of the banners that will be going up for Memorial Day.
Very good. Very good. Councilman Marinero?
Few comments to address as far as Hillside Lake. Some of the community members were a little concerned about the statement made by the town supervisor about Senator Serena's grant. Do we have anything new on that, or?
No, the Senators Dasney Dormitory Authority of New York State, which provides a lot of funding for a lot of projects, had sent us a letter requesting that the town certify that they own Hillside Lake. Obviously, with the upcoming vote, the attorney wrote a letter to them just explaining that, yes, we do, a little history about how we do it, and that there will be a vote. So we set that up a week ago or so, and we're waiting for a response from them.
Okay. And the other thing, I was wondering, there is a couple of outfalls around the lake that they usually collect more water, more sediment. I was wondering if we could ask the highway superintendent to kind of look at a couple of those and see if they need to be cleaned out. I know that, it's not a requirement, but just,
The outfalls or the basins to the outfalls?
well, yeah, some,
Okay.
both, yeah, the
Okay.
basins.
The outfalls are way out in the lake.
Right, the basins that right before the outfalls.
If the highway superintendent is with us tonight,
2 times a year now.
excuse me,
I'm sorry, we do the lake 2 times a year now.
so they do 2 times, we do them 2 times a year already. So I think it's going to happen on a regular schedule.
Environments once every 5 years.
So
Yeah.
we're very much on top of that one. Thank you.
The other thing, just they wanted me to remind the community that they have the election to dissolve the district. I believe it's May 20th. It will be at the Hillside Lake Firehouse, and the time is between 6:30 a.m. and 9 p.m. It's a long day. One other thing to bring to the attention is that I believe the Hillside Lake, the town engineer had requested that they agree to take the lake dock.
I don't know if I
Remove
called a
it.
request, but I suggested that to help the flow of water.
Right.
That, in my
So they-
opinion, removing that dock
Right.
would help alleviate
So I
the
believe they
problems.
already send you a request back. I mean, they're agreeing on that, so whenever you feel like,
Well, we'll look into getting a vendor to do that. We'll get a
Yeah.
price and we'll
Okay.
talk about
Yeah.
that.
also, I know that there was some talk about the Sleazeway being cleaned or not cleaned. Do you know if there is anything that's gonna be done besides?
Which way, oh, I'm sorry, Mayor, what was
The
that?
Sleazeway. I
Oh,
think
the-
Scott addressed one time that maybe there was some debris.
Are we talking about the metal?
Yeah,
Oh, that one,
Well, I know there's debris trapped by the dock.
yeah.
I haven't been out there in several weeks. I don't know what the status is right now, but
Okay.
when the dock gets removed, if there's anything there, we would
Clean
clean
it
it
out.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. That's basically it.
Okay. Very good. Anything else anybody like to bring up for discussion tonight?
When the dock comes out, is it coming out completely, or is it just getting moved to further down the road, or what?
I think the idea is to disconnect it, and I don't exactly recall what the request was, but they, I think, picked a point or a
Yeah.
spot they
Because
wanted
right
just
now
to
it's
store.
You're gonna
laughing up
move
just
it
as-
down the road.
I think it's just to be stored. I got to get some clarification.
Yeah,
It
but
just
you
came in today.
You're just moving it down the road.
I don't know
type
that we
thing.
are resetting it or we're just storing it. I'll get clarification.
Yeah. we'll
Is
see
it a
what
good idea to put it in the beach area, like on this other side? I mean, I don't know.
happens. Okay. Well, we'll see
Something
how
to
that-
be,
I don't,
we'll see how that
whatever the
works
board
out.
there decides they'd
Main
like
way
to
is to
do.
clear the spillway, so.
Yeah,
it flows.
That's the other.
All righty. That being said, I do have one announcement before we close tonight. I'd just like to say, I have had the good fortune to serve the people of the town of East Fishkill as town supervisor since 2006. And it's that time of year again, we're approaching the election time. And I just want to let everybody know that I will not be running for re-election for the position of town supervisor. I'm not retiring. I have looking at other things to do in my life. So I just want to let everybody know, and I'll be speaking more on that as we go. But thanking everybody for allowing me the privilege to serve. So with that, do I have I guess I don't need a motion, it's a workshop. So with that, I close the work session. Next town board meeting is May 25th, and thank you very much.